Obama's taking a really gutsy move. He's now directed his attorney general to investigate potential violations of criminal or civil laws in the energy markets. And that includes speculators. Does anybody know the last time an oil company was convicted of collusion? I don't. They got all these lawyers to make sure that they're not colluding, they're not conspiring, they're not violating antitrust laws. And the left always unleashes investigators, prosecutors to investigate them, and they always come up empty. Gee, I wonder why that is. Because all they have to do is show the myriad requests to the government that's investigating them that they've made to drill for oil, or to build refineries, or to expand refineries, all of which are almost routinely rejected or dragged out for years. That's the evidence. And so Obama's at it again. I mean, we're being ripped off by everybody, aren't we, ladies and gentlemen? Oil companies, insurance companies. There's no end to our rip-offs. And yet all I know is I just paid a fortune to the federal government. Not voluntarily either. You have to do it if you don't want to go to prison. I don't know what the hell they do with it. All completely predictable. The oil industry is a favorite target of the status, since fuel runs the engine of America's vast economy. This is from Liberty and Tyranny. The status knows that the consumer is particularly sensitive to increases in gasoline prices because of the frequent visits to the gas station. The status tells him that these increases are due to greed, or profiteering, or price gouging by the oil companies. Now, of course, oil is a commodity in worldwide demand, with use in China, India, the Earth's most populous nations, growing rapidly. Approximately 70% of the price of a gallon of gas is the cost of crude oil itself. Therefore, supply and demand on the world market directly influence availability and pricing in the United States. It's not the only thing, but it is the major thing. But apart from the world market, the status will never and must never concede that Obama, is sabotaging the provision of affordable, reliable, domestic supplies of energy by significantly and purposefully driving up costs to the oil companies in addition to worldwide supply and price influences. The status heavy hand has gripped the oil industry for more than 100 years. The oil industry is hardly free to operate as efficiently as it could, or to be as responsive to consumer demands as it would like. It has become, in essence, now listen to this, a quasi-state-run enterprise. It cannot drill, transport, refine, and store fuel without receiving government permission, complying with government regulations, and paying taxes at every level of production. The oil industry is one of the most regulated industries on earth. When the status prevents the oil companies from drilling new wells in places like Alaska, the Great Lakes, most coastal areas, he's driving down the supply of domestic crude oil and gasoline. Now, how can a nation cut itself off from most of its energy resources and hope to prosper or in the long run even survive? America's refining capacity has not changed much over the last 30 years. As Investors Business Daily reported in 2008, no new refinery has been built in the U.S. since 1983. Now, maybe they've built one since. No new refinery, as this went to print in 2009, has been built in the United States since 1983. In 1982, the U.S. economy was served by 301 refineries. By 2007, the number had dwindled to 149. Productivity has kept output steady over the years at 17 million barrels a day, but the U.S. economy has grown by 125%. So we have to import. The status has created a myriad of regulations that dictate a long list of gasoline blends, as well as seasonal and regional variants that create costly complexities and inefficiencies in the domestic production of usable fuel products. Expanding existing refineries or building new plants must meet newer and more onerous regulations than those applicable to older refineries. These are all hidden, government-imposed surcharges that are magnified throughout the economy and in the end are borne by you. The status deflects public scorn for the consequences of his own central planning by blaming the very industry he is sabotaging for supply dislocations and price hikes. And among other things, I point out that they unleash federal investigations of the oil industry every time, alleging collusion, monopolistic practices, or other illegal conspiracies. Invariably, the investigations clear rather than indict these businesses. And what of those oil industry profits? Much reporting on oil company revenues with headlines shouting oil companies made record profits, Obama said that today, is sophomoric and misleading. Rather than serving as watchdogs of the government, too many in the media give voice to the most demagogic statistics. In 2007, the oil companies earned between 8 and 9 cents for every dollar of gasoline. Again, Investors Business Daily recently summed up the oil industry profit situation this way. From 1977 to 2004, according to the Tax Foundation data, U.S. oil companies cleared $630 billion after taxes, while paying $518 billion in federal and state corporate taxes at an average rate of 45%. Gee, that's more than GE, which paid zero. Over the same period, an additional $1.34 trillion in excise fuel taxes was collected from consumers by the oil companies and turned over to various governments. So from 1977 to 2004, the oil companies cleared $630 billion. They paid federal and state corporate income taxes of $518 billion, and they paid, or we did, through them, $1.34 trillion in excise fuel taxes. So who's subsidizing whom, ladies and gentlemen? The oil companies? We're the oil companies. We're the ones that go to the gas station and fill up or use it in our homes or what have you. The taxes are massive. Obama's out there today. We got to stop subsidizing oil. We've got to stop subsidizing government. And we've got to stop subsidizing him and these campaign junkets that he goes on. Now, by my saying these things about oil, the market system, the government, and oil companies, the knee-jerkers out there, they're going to be saying, oh, he's for the oil companies. I'm not a crony capitalist. I'm a capitalist. I'm not a crony corporatist. I'm not a special pleader for corporations. I don't care. I'm a special pleader for the market system. And the oil market does not reflect the market system because the government won't get out of the way. Same with the health insurance market. Same with every damn market we have in this country. They act like they've never regulated them. The banks are regulated up the wazoo. The insurance companies, the oil companies. That's why prices are up. That's why choices are down. That's why there's dislocations. That's why there's enormous costs built in by all these regulations. Government, not the oil industry, is the biggest profiteer from oil. And it uses the tax revenue to expand its own authority at the expense of the individual. And it does with an endless number of other industries, including electric power, including coal and lumber and pharmaceuticals and automobiles and aircraft and agriculture. The statist intrusion in the free market is boundless. It's boundless. And they sabotage these industries and then investigate them, such as the Marxist way. Again, the conservative is not a corporatist. We're not a special pleader for the oil companies or any other corporations. What we defend are free markets because we're defending the civil society, because we're defending the limits the Constitution places on federal authority against tyranny that threatens everyone, including our friends and neighbors and little businesses and big businesses and all the rest of it. Well, here's Obama today in Nevada. Cut one, go.
Last month, I asked my Attorney General to look into any cases of price gouging so we can make sure nobody's being taken advantage of at the pump.
Stop. So there we are. We've created a straw man, a false enemy. Is there any evidence whatsoever anywhere that there's collusion going on or conspiracies or any other criminal or civil violence? None whatsoever. This is going on all over the country. It's predictable. Our policies are intended to drive up the price of fuel, but he's going to use law enforcement. He's going to use your Justice Department. He's going to use the criminal and civil laws of this country for political purposes. And the damn media sits on their fat asses and watches it all. If it were Richard Nixon, they'd be calling for his impeachment today. They sit there, they watch this mockery. They watch this man who's really operates like a tin horn quasi-dictator. That's right, I said it. With the czars and the edicts and against free speech and trashing this one and trashing that one. The hell does he think he is? He's the president. He's not a king. Go ahead, Mr. Producer.
Today I'm going to go a step further. The Attorney General is putting together a team whose job it is to root out any cases of fraud or manipulation in the oil markets that might affect gas prices. And that includes the role of traders and speculators. We're going to make sure that nobody's taking advantage of American consumers.
Right.
For their own short-term gain.
Thank you. Oh, thank you. Thank you, Mr. President. Track them down. In fact, build a prison. We'll call it a gulag. Put it out in, say, West Virginia. Round them up. Let's go get them. You know, the people who are driving up the price of fuel. I mean, not you and not your staff, of course. Go ahead. Get those executives. Get those traders. Get those guys. Round them up. Better yet, send them to Guantanamo Bay. We know how you hate having the terrorists there. Bring the Guantanamo Bay terrorists into the United States, where Eric Holder's former law firm can represent them. Send the oil company guys, the and by the way, do we know what a speculator is? No. But call whoever you don't like or who your enemy is, call them speculators, ripping off the people. Gee, we haven't heard this before, Castro. We haven't heard this before, Chavez. We haven't heard any of this before, have we? Yeah, go after them, punish them, put them in prison. After they get due process, of course. Boy, is he destroying this country. Every damn thing this man touches turns into crap. Look at what he's doing to oil. Look what he's doing to health care. It's regulated more than insurance companies, if you can believe it. More than banks. You can't drill a hole for oil without permission from the feds and state governments and local governments. You can't build a distribution system, a pipeline, or a storage tank without permission. You can't truck it from point A to point B without licenses and permits. You can't refine it once you truck it to the refinery unless you get permission, unless you pay taxes up the wazoo. I'm well aware of what's going on. I'm trying to explain it. And yet there still is a market system as hampered as it is. Now here's my question for you liberals, and that would include your great king Barack Obama. You say the price of oil today, Mr. Obama, is going up because of speculators. Because of speculators, okay? Stick with me, folks, even those of you who agree with them. What happens to the law of supply and demand? That is production. That is the amount of oil that's on the market. Is it the speculators, Mr. President? Or is it the lack of oil? Or is there too much oil? You're incoherent. I don't even know what you're questioning anymore. Do you? Well, what is it? The speculators, the amount of oil, or what? Because you liberals don't know what to chase or who to blame, as long as it doesn't affect you politically. All of these are factors. In the end, the speculators respond to production levels. They respond to policies that are set in this country and other countries. They don't set production levels. They respond with investments, just like you do. If the price goes up, if you're able to, you buy less. The price goes down. If you're able to, you don't pay as much attention to it. You'll drive more. Well, that's the same with investors. They operate exactly the same way. If they think the price is going to go up, they're going to invest. If they think the price is going to go down, they're going to get out. Who exactly is Obama investigating? What exactly is he investigating? And if supply and demand don't matter, then how can he accuse the oil companies of colluding? Colluding to do what? If supply's not the issue and it's the speculators, then what's the problem with the oil companies? And if it's the oil companies through supply controls that are doing this, then why are you investigating speculators? Get my point?